Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our last Be Well talk of the month of October. I can't believe it's already the end of the month, and I really want to thank the Wellspring community for joining us for this great event and in celebrating Breast Cancer Awareness Month. My name is Todd Gould. I'm a registered social worker at Wellspring London Stratford and Region, and it is great to see everyone here tonight, and I'm happy to introduce our guests. Dr. Gabriela Ilie is an esteemed associate professor jointly appointed in the Department of Community Health and Epidemiology and the Department of Urology at the Faculty of Medicine, Dalhousie University, and is also an endowed Soillse scientist in the cancer quality of life research. Dr. Ilie has cross appointments in the Department of Radiation Oncology, Psychology, and Neuroscience at Nova Scotia Health. Through her research on cancer survivorship, Dr. Ilie has a heightened awareness and understanding of the profound physical, emotional, and psychological challenges that patients face after a cancer diagnosis. Her work has significant implications for improving the well-being of cancer survivors and has garnered international recognition. Dr. Rob Rutledge is a distinguished radiation oncologist at Dalhousie University, specializing in breast, prostate, and pediatric cancers. As an associate professor in the Faculty of Medicine, Dr. Rutledge is deeply committed to advancing cancer treatment and patient care. Over the past 27 years, Dr. Rutledge has dedicated himself to delivering numerous free public talks, webinars, and charity-led initiatives. He has organized over 60 weekend retreats across 30 cities worldwide, as well as conducted dozens of day-long healing seminars for patients and medical professionals. Dr. Rutledge's dedication to holistic healing and his contributions to medical education and patient empowerment has earned him numerous accolades, including the Excellence in Patient Care Award from Cancer Care Nova Scotia. Through both their work, Dr. Rutledge and Dr. Ilie created the Patient Empower Program, PEP for short, which aims to enhance patient education and empowerment through innovative models of care. Thank you both, Dr. Rutledge and Dr. Ilie, for joining us tonight and for speaking with us.
It's a pleasure to see you, Todd. We worked with you several times. We're delighted. We're honored to be here.
Yeah.
Thank
Super
you
excited.
so much for having us.
And I'm also thinking that people who are going to watch this presentation now or later are going to learn some very particular things, how to empower yourself, some updates, scientific updates that you can really start using today, tomorrow, that can really improve your quality of life. So really, this is worth staying for, even though we're going to share our program and Gabriela has way more than prostate cancer for certain. This is about you and your life and how you can be stronger and happier and give yourself the best chance of recovery. So that's the promise.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, we're moving away from an old, a person that is being carried by medical appointments and having to devote all our attention and energy to the news of having cancer and and we move towards someone that feels liberated, that now has some control, and you feel empowered, you feel like you know what to do to help yourself, to not let this C word interfere with life and living, right? So that's really the ultimate goal, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish with our programs.
Yeah. And we're thinking about this in terms of a breast cancer presentation, right? I think that's the focus. Although you can apply this type of teaching to any type of cancer, even any type of illness in some sense. So I think that's the takeaway there. So breast cancer PEP, Patient Empowerment Program, and the scientific update of healthy habits. So, let's try down here. So this is what we're going to talk about, and the habits that are being updated: sedentarism, which means sitting too much, ultra-processed foods. Super important that you guys understand that, time-restricted eating. And then we're going to share some of our trial results and give you an opportunity to actually join the program if that's what you want to do in some way. So the great thing is you can learn about this by going to the website. So cancerpep.com. I'm sorry we don't have that as a kind of little title there. But on the website is a description of the program. And importantly, there's a 10-minute video there that you can watch that really kind of explains things and gives an overview and so on. And then ultimately you can sign yourself up. Right now, this is the commercial side. It's $180 for 6 months, but ultimately we'll have a breast cancer trial as well, I'm pretty sure. So the scientific side. So that's the website, cancerpep.com. We'll be sharing that one with you as things go on. So what are we talking about? This 6-month
We're talking
program.
about a 6 month program that we took about 8 years to develop, that is really meant to activate the role of the patient in their own care, so that we are not at the mercy of, the diagnosis. We don't let that ruin our life. We can actually enjoy life right now with the people that matter to us most. And so the question is, how do we do that? And so what we did is, over the past 8 years, we engaged patients. We asked patients, what are you really going through? What are you struggling with? And then we went and did a deep scientific review and came up with very practical tools, evidence-based, to address those needs and the struggles that people have, that can alleviate the stress and allow people to actually enjoy their lives in spite of a cancer diagnosis, in spite of challenges of treatment. When you're stuck at the hospital, then you need to go home, you need to recover. And how do we not let that get in the way of life and living, so we can actually enjoy our lives in spite of all the things that we need to pay attention to, and we will.
And I would couch that as we will improve your quality of life, but not making stress go away completely, because stress is a normal part of life. So it's improvements around it.
Yeah.
So this is the guts of the program. So 182 emails every day. So you see on the right-hand side, the email comes out and it tells you what you can do that day to really improve your health and happiness. And there's links to different videos on that side. And key to this program is a daily video, and you're just going to see a few little clips from that, but it's it's about a 5 to 7 minute video every day for 182 days, in which we demonstrate, prescribe, and describe why you should be doing what you should be doing to improve your health. So that's the guts of the program. And then, so within that, there's a whole bunch of programming, whole bunch of material that you can do. So for instance, we want you to do something every day to whatever ability you have. And typically you can slowly build yourself up. We want you to get to the 150 minutes of aerobic exercise per week. It's moderate. We want those things to be fun, right? So that you'll continue to do that with time. And we'll talk about sedentarism, or not sitting too much. Okay, so this is also participatory presentation. So you're going to be getting points according to whether or not you've been following these exercises. So in the last 7 days, if you think about it, have you added up to 150 minutes of some moderate type of exercise? And you might be in the midst of chemo or recovering from surgery. So, think about the last time when you weren't kind of in the midst of that. Are you actually doing something? And the science shows the slightly more you do, the better. So really it's probably closer to 300 minutes per week is ultimately better. So slowly kind of working your way up there. So I'll give you the cues later, but give yourself a point if you're doing something every day to improve your health. And there's lots of benefits around this. So I wanted to talk about sedentarism, this idea of sitting too much. So it's really kind of any behavior in which you're not kind of burning some calories. So that could be sitting, reclining, lying, napping, throughout the day. So that's the sedentary behavior. And the issue is, within our society, we're kind of all at risk of this, right? Between our phones and our TV viewing and commuting and reading and, computer games. It's like, there's so many ways in which we can sit too much, right? So we're really at risk of this. So sitting at work, for instance. So what defines it? Probably beyond about 2 to 3 hours in a row, there are health consequences, right? So your metabolism actually changes. And so what we're trying to suggest to you is to stand up 5 minutes every hour. Come on, stand up with me. Gabriela had a huge day. She presented a lecture this morning, like a 3-hour lecture, and a lot of things are happening. So if you want to, as you're watching this presentation right now, you can stand up and stretch. go the opposite to kind of hunching over a computer screen, right? And so it's like it's a very loving thing to do. And I like to kind of bring mindfulness to this process. You can rub your tummy, rub your chest. It's like, oh, this feels good. And to stretch and to
It does feel very good.
two inhales. Right. So lots of different ways to kind of remember to do that. Why is it important? Because it actually changes the fats and the sugars within your system that decrease the likelihood of obesity or getting diabetes and so on. You're less likely to have clots. People who have cancer increase risk of getting clots that can be life-threatening. The other thing is our brains physically slow down when we kind of are hunched over. Although you who writes papers can focus incredibly well, but for most people, slowing the body down also slows kind of the brain activity. So the problem is it increases all-cause mortality. Is a study of 17,000 Canadians from 2009, 50% increase. So if you have a 1% chance of dying of something in the next 5 years, then it's going to be 1.5% if you're sitting too much. We know that sitting too much is associated with different types of cancer, right? And so, as I say, if you know an activity increases your risk of getting a cancer, if you get that cancer, then you should not do that activity afterwards. So again, so even if you adjust for all these other dietary stuff and so on, sitting too much puts people at risk of cancers. And that's cardiovascular disease, that's diabetes, that's cancer. There's a lot of science to say sitting too much is not good for us. So here's an interesting one. So for every hour of TV, you're probably taking 21 minutes if you're sitting for prolonged hours at a time, whereas smoking a cigarette takes a little bit less off your life. Isn't that scary?
That is scary.
How about this one?
Sitting is the new smoking.
9 hours, the 9-hour study. So they're giving them meal replacements at 1, 4, and 6 hours. So they're giving them some kind of calories in their system. And there were 3 groups. There was a sitting group versus 30 minutes of exercise, then sitting, versus 100 seconds of a quick walk every 30 minutes. So even 100 seconds, talking a minute and a half, every half an hour, what happens? If you get up, it actually decreases your sugars and changes the insulin, which helps the sugars get into the cells. So, and the sugar is not good, and the insulin is not good for people who have cancer or people who are at risk of cancer because it kind of primes cancer growth. So again, something you can do to improve your health and how you think. So how is it that we sit less? Here, what are some ideas for you? You who work so hard.
Well, I think I wanted to make a caveat here and stop for a second. We live in a society where we spend a tremendous amount of time in front of technology. And science is very clear that in order for you to focus your attention, yes, you want to minimize movement so you can, all your energy and attention can focus on whatever is at hand. So with that comes looking at the phone, watching something on TV or working on a scientific paper, doing some work at work, right? So, you can't do that you can't do deep processing and deep thinking, moving. So with that, what does that mean? That we're now more prone in today's society to be sitting than we were, say, 20 years ago, where we weren't
or 100 years ago.
So our attention and energy wasn't going so much towards those devices. So it's an makes for an interesting reflection, right? That things have changed somewhat, and our bodies and our health is suffering as a result of it. So yeah, what can we do to sit less? Well, putting little alarms.
Yes.
We have those watches now that are very smart, and you can actually set your watch to get an alarm so that you get up every 15 minutes on the hour. So that's one idea.
Right.
Another one is simply to be mindful and say, hey, put little Post-its everywhere that says, move your body.
Yeah.
Put them in the washroom, in the laundry room, in the kitchen, in the bedroom,
near your computer, near your computer screen.
And you do it for yourself, you do it for your colleagues, because from our demonstrations, others learn.
Right.
So there we have it.
We model.
Yeah, we model.
Okay, so here are some ideas. So you set your alarm, which you're going to do. Stand at every opportunity. Like sometimes if you're
like you come home and I can say, Uncle, you're home.
The point is like walk up the stairs, or if you're going to chat with somebody, like stand around and chat with them.
Yes.
How about a stand-up desk?
That's
Imagine
an
that idea, right?
Imagine.
Because some of this, yes, I understand you have to focus.
Yeah, you do.
And, you know, sometimes sitting to focus is good, but that doesn't mean that you have to do that for 4 hours in a row. Sometimes you can do that just for 45 minutes and take a break. And then ultimately you'll be more
A
efficient.
great story for you. Jill is a colleague of mine at work, and she has a stand-up desk. But we know that Jill is having a hard day where she really needs to focus and read whatever she's reading because she's sitting down.
Yeah.
So everything is fine with Jill, except when you see her sit down, you know that there's something that she needs to get to stand that requires a lot of attention. Again, back to the idea that, you know, sitting down and just really not moving anything else except your fingers, or, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's a reality. It's a reality.
And another thing I would say is you're going to train yourself, right? So it might be that at a standing desk, you might only stand up 2 or 3 minutes in the hour. But as the days go by and you get better at this, and then you're standing up like 10 minutes per hour. So slowly your muscles are getting stronger, the posture is getting stronger. Other thing I like to do is, and I'm calling patients at home, for instance, follow up automatically. If I'm on the phone, I'm going to try to stand up. So it's a ritual that gets me to stand up more often. Well, I said, walk the stairs, walk to work, walking meeting, right? You're going to chat with somebody. Why not walk as you're going? Yes. Okay. There it is. So number 1, try not to sit too often, like beyond 2 hours. Okay. Give yourself a point in the last day or so if you're standing up 5 minutes every hour, right? I mean, you're not sitting for more than 2 hours in a go. Okay, part of our program is actually strength training. And so you get elastic,
your body weight
and elastic bands.
And
I like this because you see in the top left-hand corner, Gabriela is doing the easier version of the same exercise. So if you can't get down on the floor, you can follow her version. When we do yoga, I can hardly touch my toes. And so I do the easy version. Gabriela does the more difficult version, right? So you're just following along. There's 4 levels of difficulties. This is Mondays and Thursdays. Strength training, I could give you a whole talk on strength training in terms of how it changes your neurocircuitry and has benefits beyond just aerobic exercise. So strength training is actually very helpful. I really want, there's a biochemistry, a neurocircuitry around that that really can prime you and helps with falls and coordination and all sorts of things like that. So, okay, strength training. So it's a uni-gender program, right? So this is not just guys in this program, but here's an example of the different things that we do for that side. Okay, so give yourself a point. I know some people have had some surgeries recently, so you know you can't do that now, but when you could do it, give yourself a point. If you're doing some sort of strength training twice per week, usually 30 minutes per time, right? Stressing those muscles. The next thing in the program is around practicing a relaxation technique. In the prostate side, we actually loaned the guys a biofeedback monitor. You can see Sal here. It's got this monitor. It's clipped onto his ear. It's tapped into his cell phone. And the program is picking up his heart rate and how much his heart rate varies up and down according to his breathing. If you're healthy, your heart rate, I should say if you're low stress, your heart rate really varies a lot. If you're in a stress state, it's kind of stuck in the high zone. And so Sal's getting instant biofeedback as he's practicing his technique. And again, all based on science in the Heart Math Institute, for instance, showing that by doing this, people have better mental health after 6 months, less blood pressure, better sugar control, I think, less PTSD. There's a lot of things that have been proven to help, right? So I would say to all of you, give yourself a point if you're practicing some type of relaxation technique, so whether it's meditation or a breathing technique or something where you're getting that physiology to actually settle down. And again, I could give you a probably 20-minute talk just on the benefits of practicing relaxation technique and how to do that and so on. So, okay, so this is the fun one because I've learned an awful lot from my better half here. So every day through the emails and also what we say, like through the daily videos, we're teaching people to transform their diet to a healthier diet, to kind of learn the dishes that taste good and work for you and your body enjoys and all that stuff. So we're swapping out the unhealthy stuff, adding the fruits and vegetables and so on. I'm going to talk to you about time-restricted eating in a moment. We're talking about
we do it in a very natural, authentic way. Nothing is phony about this. Nothing is forced. I think it's important to know that, we're two people at home trying to make a meal relatively fast because we have such busy lives,
very much so.
Using healthy ingredients, but not expensive ingredients, just healthy. And just talking with you at the same time and sharing and that wisdom, how and fixing things, whipping things up in our own kitchen as a couple who also has to feed themselves while talking about the nutritional elements of those ingredients. And
I'm just saying, I want to show off. Gabriela is such an amazing cook, and I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. But let's make this live and real. So
see, that's a good idea.
We
We made a beans meal that is so simple. It has nothing except fresh ingredient. It has white beans in it. There's an onion in there, 4 carrots. Those rainbow carrots, because those were the only ones that we had in the fridge. A pepper. That's it. A little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper.
Tasty,
and a little bit of garlic at the end. That's
tasty.
Really, but those ingredients are food. And what Rob is talking about is, and I know that you have slides where you're going to talk about this, but these days we eat a lot of chemicals, and our bodies are just not meant to process all those chemicals. And it is so important to re-educate ourselves. So what is food?
Right.
And what's the difference between food and chemicals?
I can say,
and why is this such an issue for us? I mean, listen, we have high prevalence rates of depression and anxiety, even in kids. Their metabolic system is upside down, their digestive, their gut, microbiome is not working well. And so the question is, how come all of a sudden, as a planet, we have so many issues, health issues,
chronic medical conditions. It's partly diet.
You got it. Ultra-processed foods.
I just want to say, as part of the program, so Gabriela is a fantastic chef, and I'm at the other end of the spectrum.
Not anymore.
I'm slowly learning. I can wash a mean dish. So once a week we do a cooking video in which she teaches me a healthy dish, and so that's
the inept oncology. Learning how to cook. It's so easy. Even an oncologist can do it.
Yes, great. So
look at this.
You can see that I'm chopping up.
Look how proficient you are there. Look, chop.
Showing it off for the camera.
Carrots and keeping up with me and being fast. I mean, you are not slacking there.
No,
look at you go. Look at you go.
So and I'd also say, I just showed you a dish that was actually cheap. Right? You say, well, to eat vegetarian, it's really costly. Well, yeah, you're right. However, being super healthy and cheap at the same time. Okay. I want to talk about ultra-processed foods. And I call them ultra-processed food-like substances. That's probably a better way to describe it.
Yeah, because that's what they are. And by the way, reading newspaper and finding out that now there's fake chicken and fake fish on the market and getting approved to be rolled out.
That's not what we're talking about.
And that's what I'm talking about. Chemicals. And our bodies are just not meant.
With all the chemicals. Okay, so this is it. What is it? What are the health consequences and a little thing? So
good. Are you going to go over this?
Yes.
I'm happy.
So there's the food industry, and what they're doing is producing cheap product to maximize their profit. And so what
And
they do is,
increase shelf life.
yeah, so they're extracting the components of the food. And the whole, why we call it whole foods is because there's so many interactions between all those micronutrients that you just can't, you know, just pull out one micronutrient and think that you're going to get the full benefit of that. So distribution requires preservation, which is what you're talking about. And yes, it does provide cheap food. And, you know, if you're very poor, ultimately you're kind of forced into oftentimes eating this ultra processed stuff because of the kind of food swamps and food deserts that are out there. But the issue is what's happened is there's been this iterative process of the food industry designing the foods so that they will taste addictive, right? Between the salt, sugar, fat, and also the texture. Right. So it's really easy to like the food goes in even before your body knows that you've consumed that many calories. So they've created an addictive.
It messes up the threshold of the satiety.
Yes.
And so you don't feel full.
Right. It's going in.
You've had enough.
It's going in too fast is the issue.
Yeah.
Right. And then marketing, and ultimately they're just trying to sell you more product. It's just how the capitalistic system works and their focus groups. And if they sell more product, then, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's the issue, right? So they've created this addictive food-like substances. And so going back to the 1990s, this researcher in Brazil, Gabriela, started a NOVA classification. So these first three categories are actually okay. This is not what we're talking about. Right. So it's okay to have some processing. It's like, it's normal, natural. The problem is when you get into the fourth category, which is a big jump there. It's the ultra processed stuff. Right. So isolating and all this kind of adding of all these different additives and chemicals that causes the problem here. So, and here, this is Dr. Kratz and his slide showing all the ways that there are adding some things there. Emulsifier, what does an emulsifier do?
Well, like in detergent, an emulsifier is supposed to break out the fat, the oily substances in your clothing, right?
Yes.
So what that does to our stomach is that it destroys the lining of the stomach, creating irritation.
Of the whole GI tract,
Of the whole GI tract.
So you're kind of ripping off some of the cell surface. Can result in leaky gut syndrome, right? So these are the things that are in the ultra processed foods, right? And so what I suggest to you is not be focusing on the top part, which is kind of the macronutrients. We've been taught to think about, you know, carbs and protein and fat and all that stuff. Yes, that's okay. It's okay to understand that. What I'm suggesting is look at some of the stuff. If you read a word and can't even identify it.
And if you don't find it in your, do you have it in the cupboard? Do you have this
all these chemicals,
dextrose? What is that? L-cysteine? I don't have L-cysteine in my cupboard. If my neighbor knocks at my door and says, "Give me some L-cysteine," I'll say, "What are you talking about, girl?"
Right. Yeah.
You know, those things don't exist in our cupboard. Those are not food. They're chemicals. Do not buy, do not consume.
The big chemicals with the long list.
Please stay away from them. Where our bodies are not meant to digest them.
So we're talking about foods that have many ingredients, extracts, chemicals you don't recognize, and all the. So you don't have it in your kitchen. You can't make that food yourself, right? You could make that thing. And this is the scary part. I want you guys to listen to this. Most of your supermarket breads are ultra processed foods. Most of your breakfast cereals, most of your yogurt, your energy bills, anything that's wrapped in plastic, like the kind of lasagnas and the pre-made dinners, ultra processed foods. Okay. Sorry, guys.
So many tips on how to stay away from them. Look, shop the periphery of the supermarket. That's where the healthy foods usually are. That's where the fruits and the vegetables are, right?
So Canada Food Guide, well done, guys. Again, this is all the stuff there. And I took this picture from the big box store, and I'm going to blow it up here in a second. So those are all ultra processed foods. Love it. I'm going to read this line, contains bioengineered food ingredients. Okay, that doesn't sound like my, evolution is supporting this.
Cellulose gum,
Great.
mono and diglycerides, vegetable gums, carrabine gum,
Yes.
guar gum, tar gum,
I wouldn't say
carrageenan.
Yeah. Great quality, not great price, perhaps guaranteed. Yes, it's guaranteed. It's a low price, but there it is. Okay. Why are we so obsessed about this?
Yeah.
The issue is we're probably getting into 60-70% of our caloric intake in Canada. It's coming from all processed foods. And if you look at it in kids, 75%, and that's associated with a lot of these issues.
ADHD, anxiety, depression, obesity, diabetes.
Yeah.
Look what we've done to our next generation.
Yeah.
Heck, look what we've done to ourselves.
How about some whole foods? How about some vegetables?
How about that? How about cutting some apples?
This is what it means for you, right? So if we have chemicals in our diet affecting our microbiome, hard to think clearly. Increased risk of cancer, increased risk of putting on too much weight and getting diabetes.
Yeah.
Neurodegenerative disease. You're going to survive your cancer, live for another 30 years, but you're going to be suffering from Alzheimer's type stuff. Really, please don't go there. So a lot of medical conditions that you can change through your healthy habits.
Yeah.
How about the cancer side? So huge prospective analysis from a biobank. I won't read you the right side of the screen, just to say 200,000 people followed for many years, 10 years.
Yeah.
First taken in around 2010. They did a 24-hour dietary assessment. At that point, they actually had a low percentage of ultra-processed food, but ultra-processed foods was associated with increased risk of cancer, controlling for all these other things. This one is scary. So Kevin Hall did a study. He had 20 overweight adults and put them into a kind of an institution. So they weren't sick. They were just like overweight. And he randomized them to 2 weeks. Like they had two groups. One had the healthy diet for 2 weeks and then the ultra processed food. The other one had the ultra processed food first for 2 weeks. And then they crossed over. And the unhealthy diet had 80% of the calories from ultra processed foods, whereas the healthy diet had 80% of the calories from the whole foods, which is like real food. Right? And the diets were matched in terms of caloric density and macronutrients and fiber. So for instance, the bad diet would have a blueberry muffin made with all these chemicals. The good diet would have like a blueberry muffin made with whole foods, essentially. Right? And so interestingly, and they took their dietary history and asked them, do you feel like you're full? And both groups said, yes. I feel like I'm full after each meal. I'm enjoying the food to the same degree. So there was a balance there. The guys that are eating the bad diet were eating 500 calories more per day, and they gained 2 pounds over 2 weeks, whereas the good diet side actually lost 2 pounds of weight.
Wow.
Just by eating
healthy.
They're feeling the same. We don't know why there's weight gain there. I think it's because those chemicals mess up the satiety center. You're getting the increased calories without even knowing it.
Your body's saying, eat, eat. I'm not full yet. Eat. Yeah.
Hard to know.
Yeah.
So with all that, asking each of you, thinking about yesterday, did you have 5+ servings of fruits and vegetables? And a bonus point if you avoided some animal products in the last week as well. We're vegetarian. I do eat fish occasionally, but bottom line is that's the healthiest option.
Yeah.
Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is it's not just, as you say, it's not just what you eat, but when you eat it makes a difference. And so I don't like talking about fasting. It sounds like you're, denying yourself something. I like to talk about time-restricted eating. So you have the same diet, but you're eating it during a period of time and not eating overnight. So.
And it's so easy to do. I mean, you stop eating at 8 p.m. and you don't eat anything. You can have water, right? But nothing else until 8 a.m. in the morning the next day.
That's 12 hours.
That's 12 hours. Of course, ideally, you can,
Go
wait
6
until
p.m. to 8 a.m. might be
9
14 hours, probably closer to what you want. And just to explain it, so when we eat a meal, we have glucose, which is sugar, going into the bloodstream, into the cells, into the liver, where it kind of gets concentrated into glycogen. The fatty stuff goes into the cells, gets stored in the fat cells as well. So that's happening when you eat. And then when you stop eating, you're burning off all those calories. So the liver is starting to break down the glycogen to give you the sugars, and the fatty acids are starting to produce ketones, which is actually what you want to do.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if you're not eating for long enough, then you're really starting to put out the ketones, and you're not having any of the sugary stuff around, which is what you want. And why is that? Because the ketones, when you have that ketogenic position or state, it actually improves how the cells work, makes them more resistant to
because you
damages.
The time
Yes.
to actually
Yes.
swipe the chemicals, just clean things up in the body. They can actually focus and do their thing.
Yes.
Rather than ditching a bullet from the chemicals. Dodging a bullet. Yeah.
Exactly.
And being in the dodge it bullet business.
Now, interesting, autophagy, or however you say it, means eating your own cells, right? So you're cleaning up the bits of the small cells or the weak cells, including cancer cells, right, during this phase.
During
the phase
ketosis.
of ketosis.
Yeah.
We could talk about inflammation for a long period of time as well, but essentially we want to have less inflammation or irritation in the body. So there's
because inflammation, I like narratives and I like stories. Think about a body with various communities that have a lot of fires to put out. If you and inflammation, this is what inflammation is the metaphoric, and metaphorically speaking, is like having a house on fire. So you need to, put that fire down. But if you're constantly putting fire, your body cannot spend its resources and energy in focusing in destroying cancer cells, because it has to, or healing itself, because it has to constantly fight the inflammation. And this is really the culprit, number one culprit for so many chronic diseases and conditions that we have. So we almost live in a constant state of inflammation.
Yeah.
And stress and mental distress doesn't make things easier. It also causes oxidization.
Yeah, that's inflammation too. Yeah.
That's inflammation as well.
Yeah. Both of that. So we want to decrease that, decrease our risk of cancer, decrease the risk of slow growing cells turning into fast growing cells. Okay. So the point is, we do that by giving yourself a break.
Yeah.
You eat during the day, you don't eat at night. If you do that, blood sugar goes down, insulin levels go down, which is also important in terms of priming cell growth, lower fat production, better blood pressure. It's like your whole body needs that rest overnight, so not to eat there. So the takeaway then is, try not to eat for the first hour, first thing in the morning, and try not to eat for the last 2 or 3 hours before going to sleep. I suffer from that one because I'm trying to get some exercise in and then eating late because of it, blah, blah, blah. It's okay to have coffee or tea that doesn't really have the calories, but no sugar or milk first thing in the morning, right? So first thing in the day, yes, you can have a little bit of coffee, but give yourself a break for the first hour. So if you're not eating for 14 hours, you're eating for 10 hours, whereas that's time restricted eating. Periodic fasting means you're reducing your calories over the weekend, for instance. Or fasting is like for 24 hours prior to or after chemotherapy, for instance. There may be some data suggesting that improves the effect of chemotherapy. Okay. So how do you do this? You slowly train yourself, because the metabolism, getting those ketones into the bloodstream, takes time, right? And so what you're slowly doing is increasing the amount of time in which you're not eating overnight. Essentially, that's it. But you want to have that hungry feeling, or at least, as you're first getting up and for that first hour or so. You are going to, if you attempt this, and I think you should slowly increase this, that hunger time, like first thing in the morning, might cause a little bit of irritation, right? And so you can be irritable, some headaches, some dehydration, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then somehow
A
the
little more
body adapts.
irritable, a little more
Yes.
reactive.
Yeah. So, but
It's
you're
like breaking an addiction, the addiction of the old you, where, you know, consume all those chemicals and you don't give your body a break. And all of a sudden, breaking that pattern is the equivalent of, you know, breaking an addiction.
yeah.
And what is an addiction but an activity that you cannot stop from? You just keep doing
Despite-
it, doing and doing.
Adverse consequences despite ongoing use.
Yeah.
This is why we're talking about it, is that there are multiple benefits.
Yeah.
So the brain
Which
can
is wonderful.
repairs
Isn't it this?
itself.
Yeah.
You can think more clearly. Your blood sugar levels, your immune system, your heart actually heals itself a bit more. Your kidneys, promotes weight loss, helps to prevent cancer, right? So if you know something helps to prevent cancer, then that's what you want to do after a cancer diagnosis. Okay, here it is. Give yourself a point if last night or whenever was appropriate, you had 12 or more hours where you didn't eat anything, no calories for 12 or more hours.
Okay.
I don't think I would have succeeded last night. Okay, so in our program, we're also teaching you about intimacy and connection, right? This idea that we can actually facilitate better relationships in our lives.
Yeah, and there's a science and methodology on how to do that. We talk about forgiveness. We talk about how we meet our emotional needs.
Yeah.
We talk about the emotional stress. What does that do to our body? Why is that there? How to take, we encourage self-intimacy, giving yourself space without any guilt.
Yeah, very
Right?
nice.
Yeah.
And actually prescribe some activities like walking Wednesdays. Go for a walk with somebody if you can on a Wednesday.
That's right.
Call somebody at a distance on a Sunday.
I see a comment there.
Oh, that's very lovely.
Oh, that's just information from Todd.
Yeah. All good.
Okay.
So give yourself a point if you engaged, on average, in at least one or more form of intimacy every day.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like investing in your relationships in some way to kind of connect with people.
Yeah.
So connection time, quality time.
And we tend to normalize things that are a little bit taboo in our society. Things like, what do you mean I have emotional needs? What do you mean that, I should know my intimacy profile to help facilitate meeting those emotional needs in a socially acceptable manner, but also that is customized because we're all different, we speak different emotional languages, we speak different love languages. And so it's important to know what kind of language do we speak.
Psychology languages too.
And exactly. And what kind of language does our loved ones speak? So we end up speaking the same language.
Yes.
Imagine that.
Speak to them in a way that they can be able to accept
and understand. Yeah.
Part of our program is to connect with our participants if they want to. So there's a buddy system in which you can be paired up with two other people that are going through the program. The ask is a once a week phone call just to connect and support each other.
Yeah.
We have monthly Zoom video conferences available there, and it's ongoing. And so that allows people to get a scientific update, for instance, the ultra processed food update type thing, large and small group discussions. So access to mentors. So different ways that we make this organic and connecting, and that we stay connected with you. So some Zoom meetings. So give yourself a point within your life now, thinking about this. If you scheduled some type of quality time with the same person or group of people every week, do you have an activity in which you plan? Thursday night is like go to the movies night, or, play cards night, or go for
Wednesday night is when our daughter comes over, we cook a meal and we update each other.
Nice. Yeah. So give yourself a point. The other part of this program is that we ask you to report on what you did the previous week.
Yes.
And we found, and the feedback was very clear, that this acts as a reminder and keeps people accountable to the program.
Correct.
So again, we're looking at the science. Okay, so that's the program. And we did a randomized trial for prostate cancer. And we don't have the time to show off all the incredible science that we did.
But I can maybe just quickly walk them through it. So what we did is we recruited about 128 men who were diagnosed, and they had a biopsy-proven adenocarcinoma. So they had prostate cancer, and they were randomly assigned. So half of them were to be treated. They had an appointment, and they were to be treated with surgery, and half of them were to be treated with radiation therapy. And so they were randomly assigned to either this intervention, the patient empowerment program, for 6 months, or they followed usual medical care. At 6 months, the group that received usual medical care received the information until the end of the year. And patients who had the intervention were left at their own discretion to go on until the end of the year. And so 66 patients in the early group or the intervention group for the first 6 months, 62 in the control group, those that received standard of care, and then they received the intervention at the end of the 6 months. Yeah, and so the results of the study show that at 6 months, patients who were in the intervention had better mental health, decreased mental distress compared to the patients in the usual standard of care who had increased mental distress at 6 months. And in fact, the difference was about 3.6 times, the odds were about 3.6 times higher to have mental distress and be screened positive for non-specific psychological distress and need for clinical treatment, actual clinical intervention. Because the patients in the control group received the intervention, were able to stabilize their mental distress by the 12 months. And overall, when compared to baseline, they actually did better. The ones in the PCPEP group continued to improve until the end of the year, right? So those were the results, but we conducted so many other studies because this data was so rich. We had qualitative interviews, we had physiological measurement, we had EEG, measures of physical fitness. And so what we showed, just to give you a synopsis of the results in the prostate cancer patient empowerment program, patients that took the program had better urinary symptoms. And that's important because, especially with prostate cancer, this is a major side effect for men. That is really not pleasant. Whatever you drink, poof, is there. I mean, what quality of life is that? And to be able to improve that urinary function, it's wonderful for men. So those were the results there. Sexual function also improved, sexual symptoms rather, improved at 6 months for men who were treated with surgery. And oftentimes sexual dysfunction happens as a result of radical prostatectomy. So to see sexual symptoms that improved at 6 months and even at the end of the year from men diagnosed with prostate cancer that underwent radical prostatectomy compared to usual care, that was fantastic. But we also noticed better physical fitness, not just in terms of reduced weight and
they did lose weight,
BMI. So not just in terms of reduced weight, but also in terms of physical fitness in general. So better physical fitness when you're in the intervention compared to the standard of care. Patient activation went up. So we also noticed that this was a mediator. So in the relationship between group, either intervention or standard of care, and mental distress. What does that mean? The mechanism through which people's distress was reduced as a result of being in the intervention is because we activated the role of the patient in their own care. They became empowered, they became knowledgeable, they had an experience of what it means to eat food, not chemicals, to move your body, to love, to breathe fully, to learn how to reduce distress and calm yourself in difficult situations, right? So all those things ended up empowering patients, giving them an increased sense of illness control, perceived control. Right? Like you feel like, hey, I can actually control some things here, increased self-efficacy, and this mediated this relationship. This is the mechanism through which this happens. Because as scientists, we want to know for whom does this program work, under what conditions, what circumstances, and why. So the why here is patient activation, patient empowerment. You know, we don't have to be at the mercy of a cancer diagnosis. We can still enjoy our lives. Wait a minute.
Very much more, yeah.
Reduced, yeah. So patients had reduced psychological distress that you saw. We also did a cost evaluation by looking at the billings through the medical system, and we noticed that the medical system actually saved money when patients were empowered and were provided this information. We also did a context mechanism outcomes qualitative evaluation, and what we noticed is actually that things that are lacking right now in the medical system actually act as a barrier to patients' well-being. So a program like this really fills that gap that exists between what people go through when they get a cancer diagnosis, what their needs are, what they're struggling with, and how the medical system is not there to help this. So we have a program like this really bridges those experiences that patients have when they get a cancer diagnosis versus what the medical system has to offer, which is entirely treatment for the disease, not the whole needs of the patients, which this program addresses. We also noticed through our analysis that bowel function, relationship satisfaction, people maintain their relationships throughout the program, which is wonderful. And so very briefly, now we went on to expand on the prostate cancer patient empowerment program and expand the program to all forms of cancer. The majority of those patients, however, were breast cancer patients. So we had 104 patients in the cohort. 58 of them were breast cancer patients. And so this was also a randomized clinical trial. However, the randomization didn't occur between having the intervention versus usual care as much as we randomized a piece of equipment. More specifically, in this program, we lend patients a biofeedback device that helps them show their own physiology as they breathe, and they practice those breathing techniques that are very useful in stress reduction. And we wanted to know, would results be different if we give this equipment or we don't this equipment, we just teach the technique? And what the randomized clinical trial shows, so everybody went through the intervention, only that half of the people had the HRV monitor, the heart rate variability monitor, this biofeedback device, half didn't. At the end of the 6 months, we gave the group that did not have the device, we gave them the device until the end of the year. We analyzed the results, and the results came back and said it didn't matter whether or not they had this biofeedback device. And that's important because a lot of the cost of this program is driven by this biofeedback device. It's about $200. And so, so that was very, very useful information to learn. What is interesting and stunning about this program and the results is that at the start of the randomization, so before the intervention began, almost half of the participants had mental distress and need for clinical treatment. So rates really high in terms of mental distress and the necessity of some intervention. By the end of the 6 months, notice the distress was almost reduced by half. Wow. Not just for the full cohort. This is the breast cancer cohort. This is the full sample, but also the full sample, right? So huge reduction in mental distress at 6 months. And that reduction was maintained by 12 months and even went down a little bit for the breast cancer group. Wow. Had no idea. So that's just lovely. And then what we also did is we looked at the plethora of needs and struggles that cancer patients have, and we gained data on what those were with respect to our sample. And I'm not going to go over them, but basically fatigue, having problems at night sleeping, relationship issues, being worried about family and friends. And what we noticed is that overall there was a trend of reducing those needs from baseline at the start of the trial to 6 months to a year. So really wonderful results, mapping onto some of the results that we got for PCPEP.
The prostate side,
The interesting part about this is that Rob and I didn't stop there. We expanded the program to all forms of chronic disease. We're also, we're now providing the program to CC Crown, which is a non-for-profit organization for colorectal cancer, and they have a chance to try the program currently. We're also expanding the program, taking the Cancer PEP program and creating new modules for breast cancer patients. We're hoping that the Canadian Cancer Society will fund some of this tweaking of the program specifically for breast cancer patients. But just wanted to tell you quickly that we just analyzed the 6 months results of the Pictou County, which is a chronic disease expansion of the program. And we are shocked in that the results are even better than those of the Cancer PEP program in this population. And what we think, again, the mechanism and what we think is happening there, just from the qualitative interviews that we obtained and also the quantitative data that we have, is that because they don't struggle as much, they're not as shocked and scattered by you have a cancer diagnosis is a major life event, but they don't have that. So they're so thirsty on adopting those habits and integrating, and they have the time and the psychological openness, right? They're not consumed by medical appointments, treatments, and so on. I mean, being a cancer patient, the life of a cancer patient is quite busy and very much consumed by medical appointments, the stress, waiting for the results and so on. Those guys didn't have those, and they did much better. Stunning. So we're just about to publish those results.
So we're just saying that we're going to create a breast program, which is based on the same Cancer PEP background.
Yeah.
And that we want to make sure that it's specific for breast cancer. So that's the next part of it. We'll still have the same daily emails. It's same very, very comprehensive background, exercise, strength, diet, relaxation, talking about intimacy, habit formation, sleep science, working with your thoughts, attitudinal healing, self-compassion. It is a very, 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 very comprehensive program. And then participants, again, get to choose in whatever way is best for them. We'll have the same compliance surveys. And here are some ideas of what we're going to be actually adding. In fact, we had a conference of breast cancer survivors who gave us this feedback that, yes, they need some arm physiotherapy. They need to know about lymphedema, which was arm swelling. There's issues around body image and sexuality. So we'll add that kind of component around that. I'm a firm believer in practicing a relaxation technique in the kind of high anxiety scenarios like going into surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. So there's an opportunity or an option for them. Breast cancer reconstruction, perhaps. And again, participants get to choose how they want to engage the program. They're still going to get that same information. The elements are optional. So we're going to have a program. It's going to be available for breast cancer. In the meantime, we do have a program, for Cancer PEP, which is for everybody. Okay.
Yeah. It's available now. You don't have to be part of the trial. It's available for anybody that is interested in it. It's extremely cheap. So it's less than $1 a day.
Yeah.
And basically you have access to the program nonstop and access to the live monthly video conferences. So it's so it's really cheap. It's about $180 right now or something like that. Yeah.
So I had asked you all these questions. So I want you to try to add up your score right now, right? So if you're exercising, if you're standing, doing some sort of strength training, you're eating fruits and vegetables, you're not eating overnight, you're practicing relaxation technique, you're engaging, connecting with your loved ones, and even scheduling an activity. So you get 1 point for each of these. I want you each to give yourself a score out of 8.
I'm so excited. Let's go
find out how to do.
Let's see how we do.
Yeah, and what we've done over the years is we've been able to correlate your score with the personality types as well. So we kind of know how you score and what is here. So if you scored 8, then we know you're a pathological liar. You're 7, you're probably mentally challenged in the math department there. Scored 6, you probably answered on behalf of your dog. 5, that's actually pretty damn good. Top 10 percentile. Yeah, if you got a 4, then you're probably in that range where somebody can actually help you. If you got a 3, at least you're with us. You know, we're all together in this. Yes. Well, then 2, and thank you for being honest. You know, you want to accept where you're at as the first step in your recovery, right, Todd? Number 1, thank goodness for recreational drug habits.
This is great.
Actually, I'm not endorsing that one because it's actually bad for you. But anyways, yes. And 0, you go straight home. You're probably all home already. So that's how we've been assessing this. We just want to say there's so many people that have, have just really helped us so much. Particularly the people who've done the programs, right?
Yeah,
and they become research citizens and citizen leads.
We cannot thank enough. And we have some of them present today, and we're looking forward to connecting with you after we stop this recording.
Yes.
But we also have a documentary coming up soon, and we're so excited.
Yeah.
A Cancer PEP documentary is going to blow your mind. It's definitely made me cry. And I only saw like
first minute.
Like a minute. I only saw a minute, and I said, "Oh my goodness, this is great!"
Yeah, lots of fun.
So really excited. And those are just some of our site leads. We have only clinical site leads throughout the country.
Yes,
the program now is global. It's available in New Zealand for all patients. Thanks to pediatricians. And we also now working with Belgium. We just got a $500,000 grant there, and Romania. And we're working with England and Australia. So we're excited.
Yeah.
To be expanding the program worldwide. So I think we should stop the share now.
Yeah, no, I want to leave this up on the screen for people, right? So cancerpep.com, right?
Yes.
Very simple. Check it out. There's a 10-minute video there. We've left our email address, our cell numbers, if you want to contact us, have questions, et cetera, et cetera. We'll finish the presentation now. So you can stop the kind of record button.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Happy to.
Rob and Gabriel. I really always appreciate the time, and it's always great hearing from you both and listening to all your amazing information, and I really appreciate it. I always use some of the lines that I've learned throughout our years of working together, and one of them, which I love, is we don't heal in isolation, we heal in relationship. And this rings true with your program and with your philosophy, and it's so amazing to have you both here. And also, people want to be heard. They don't want to be fixed.